The room went dead silent the second my video hit the projector, because there was Linda Hawthorne, the HOA president, standing at my gate at night with a screwdriver in her hand, leaning into the control panel like she owned my property. 2 minutes later, the board's attorney was whispering to the treasurer, and somebody in the back actually said, "Oh my God," out loud. Linda tried to smile through it until the board voted to suspend her on the spot and opened a financial review that would end her little reign for good. I'm Ethan Parker, and I live in a neighborhood called Willow Ridge Commons, one of those picture-perfect places where the lawns look like carpets and the rules are thicker than the phone book. People wave, dogs get walked, the mailboxes match, and the homeowners association acts like it's the government. And Linda was the kind of HOA president who didn't just love rules, she loved power. The kind of woman who says community standards the way other people say my kingdom. It started with my driveway. Monday morning, early coffee in one hand, keys in the other, and my phone buzzing because I had a work presentation at 9:30 sharp. I step outside, and there's a silver sedan parked sideways across the mouth of my driveway like a barricade. Not on the curb, not in a guest spot, across my exit. I stood there blinking like my brain hadn't loaded the scene yet. Then I walked closer and saw the vanity plate, LNHWTHRN. Of course it was hers. I called my boss Mark with that tight voice you use when you're trying not to sound crazy. "Hey Mark, I'm gonna be late. My driveway's blocked again." And he just exhaled into the phone like he'd been waiting for me to say it. "Ethan, whatever it is, document it. We'll push your slot. Just get here." I marched straight to Linda's house. She opened her door like she'd been expecting applause. Blonde hair, perfect tennis sweater tied around her shoulders, holding a travel mug like a prop. She didn't even pretend to be surprised. She just tilted her head and said, "Yes." "That's your car," I said. "It's blocking my driveway." She smiled bigger. "Oh, it'll only be 15 minutes. The landscaping crew needs access, and street parking is restricted for aesthetics." Aesthetics, I repeated, staring at her like she'd just told me gravity was optional. She lifted her eyebrows. "We all make sacrifices for the community." "Cool," I said, keeping my voice level. "Move it. Now." That's when her expression shifted just slightly, like she didn't like being spoken to in full sentences. "Ethan, you've been difficult lately." I laughed once, short and dry. "I'm difficult because I want to leave my house." She leaned in a little still, smiling. "I'm just saying some of your recent requests haven't exactly shown a community-minded attitude." And there it was, the tell. This wasn't about landscaping. This was personal. She moved her car slow as molasses, like every step was a message. I peeled out of there and still showed up late, suit wrinkled, pulse pounding, trying to act like my morning hadn't started with an HOA ambush. And that should have been the end of it. But it wasn't. Over the next few weeks, it turned into a pattern. Someone just for a minute parked across my driveway. A contractor truck accidentally left half a trailer blocking my exit. A neighbor's guest didn't realize. And every single time when I complained, the answer was the same: silence or Linda. She'd email me from the HOA account like it was a courthouse. "We encourage residents to be patient and cooperative. Temporary inconveniences benefit the community. Your tone is noted." Not once did she tell anyone to stop. So I did the most boring, responsible thing a person can do when they're being messed with. I tried to solve it with hardware. I called a gate company. A tech came out with a measuring wheel and a clipboard, walking my driveway like it was a crime scene. I told him exactly what was happening. He didn't even act shocked. He just nodded like he'd heard this story in 10 different neighborhoods. "What kind of gate you thinking?" he asked. "Something clean," I said. "Something that looks like it belongs, and something that stops people from treating my driveway like a public road." When he quoted me $7,500, I actually laughed, until I realized I was still going to do it, because the alternative was letting Linda Hawthorne control whether I could leave my own house. I submitted the architectural request like a good little resident: drawings, photos, materials, color samples, the whole song and dance, and for a week nothing. Then I got the rejection letter. No specific rule cited, no correction suggestions, just a polite little denied stamped with HOA authority and a line about how my gate would impact neighborhood uniformity. Neighborhood uniformity. Meanwhile, Linda's car could impact my job schedule anytime she felt like it. That night I sat at my kitchen table staring at that letter, and I'll be honest, something in me sagged. Not in a dramatic movie way, in a real way. The way you feel when you realize the system you're supposed to rely on is the same system being used against you. I remember looking out the window at my driveway and thinking, if I keep fighting this, it's going to eat every spare hour I have. If I let it go, it's going to keep happening forever. And for about 10 minutes, I seriously considered doing nothing. Just taking the hit, adjusting my life around someone else's power trip. Then my phone buzzed. A neighbor, Jenna, from 2 houses down, texted me a photo. It was Linda's sedan again, parked across my driveway from earlier that day. Jenna had snapped it from her porch like she'd been waiting for it. Her message was one line, "This isn't normal. If you need a witness, I've got you." That was the moment I stopped thinking in circles and started thinking in steps. I hired an attorney, Daniel Ortiz. HOA disputes. Quiet voice, sharp eyes, the kind of guy who reads governing documents like bedtime stories. I showed him the rejection, the emails, the photos. He didn't rant. He didn't gasp. He just started making a list. "We're going to do this clean," he said. "We're going to make them follow their own process." He sent certified letters to the board demanding they cite the exact provision I'd supposedly violated and provide meeting minutes showing a legitimate vote. He requested records. He asked for enforcement history. He used words like selective enforcement and retaliation and liability. Funny thing about bullies, they get nervous when you stop arguing and start documenting. The HOA suddenly found time for a special meeting, and wouldn't you know it, once the rest of the board had to put their names on the record, my gate request magically became eligible for reconsideration. The vote passed. Linda's jaw was tight enough to crack tile, but she couldn't stop it. The gate went up 2 weeks later. Black metal, clean lines, smooth slide, remote opener, keypad. The whole thing looked so normal you'd think it had always been there. For 3 days it was peaceful. Then the violation notices started. Mailbox height, lawn edge, improper storage because my trash bin was visible for 10 minutes longer than her preferred timeline, petty, constant, exhausting death by 1,000 paperwork cuts. And then someone tried to mess with the gate. I noticed the control box looked off. The panel had a fresh scratch. The screws weren't seated right. I called the installer, and he went quiet when he opened it. "Someone's been in here," he said. I didn't accuse anyone. I didn't send an angry email. I did what my boss told me, document it. I installed 2 cameras with motion lights. A couple nights later, at 11:47 p.m., my phone lit up with an alert. I opened the feed, and there she was. Linda Hawthorne standing at my gate like it was her job. Hair pulled back, cardigan over pajamas, looking around like she was checking for witnesses. Then she pulled a screwdriver from her pocket and leaned into the control panel. My stomach went cold. I threw on shoes and walked outside, not running, not yelling, just walking because I wanted her to hear my footsteps. "Linda," I said loud enough to carry. She jerked like a teenager caught sneaking in after curfew, then straightened up fast, forcing a smile. "Ethan, I'm conducting a safety check. This gate could be a hazard in an emergency." With a screwdriver, I asked, staring at the tool in her hand. She lifted her chin. "The HOA has a duty." I pointed up at the camera. "Keep talking. You're doing great." For a second, her face did this little flicker, like she was calculating whether intimidation still worked. Then she snapped, "You can't record me." "Oh, I can," I said, calm as a judge. And I did. The next morning, Linda called a board meeting claiming I'd threatened her. Daniel came with me, carrying a laptop like it was a briefcase. The community center was packed more people than I'd ever seen at an HOA meeting because nothing draws a crowd like drama that's finally real. Linda sat at the front table, gavel in hand, trying to look official. She started reading, her complaint voice trembling just enough to sound victimized. "We are here to address Ethan Parker's escalating hostility toward a board member." Daniel stood up. "Before we proceed, the board should view evidence relevant to the allegations." Linda's eyes widened. "No, this meeting is not for—" "It is," Daniel said, calm. "Unless you'd like to explain why a board member was at a resident's gate at midnight with tools." The room shifted. People leaned forward. Somebody whispered, "Tools." Daniel clicked play. And there she was on the big screen, looking over her shoulder, pulling out the screwdriver, prying at my gate control box like she was breaking into her own lie. The noise that came out of the crowd wasn't anger at me, it was disgust at her. Linda shot up out of her chair. "This is out of context." "What context makes that okay?" someone yelled. The treasurer, a quiet guy named Paul, who usually looked like he wanted to disappear, cleared his throat and said, "Madam President, please sit down." Linda looked like she couldn't believe the words were aimed at her. That's when the board's attorney leaned over and whispered something to Paul. Paul nodded pale and turned to the room. "For the record," he said, voice shaky but steady, "the board is voting to suspend Linda Hawthorne from her duties, effective immediately pending investigation." Linda's mouth opened. Nothing came out. And while she was still trying to recover, Daniel slid one more document across the table, a formal request for a financial audit. Turns out when people stop being afraid of you, they start looking at everything. The audit didn't take long. Landscaping charges that somehow matched the exact improvements at Linda's house. Vendor payments with no supporting invoices. Thousands of dollars routed through community beautification that looked a lot more like Linda's backyard makeover. A week later, the board held another meeting without her gavel, without her smile, and voted to remove her permanently and refer the financial mess to the proper authorities. The last time I saw Linda at Willow Ridge Commons, she walked past my gate and didn't even look at it. No speech, no grand exit, just a woman who finally ran out of power and had to live with the paper trail she left behind. Lesson boundaries don't mean anything until you back them with proof.